much. So this is section 2, and in this section, Gary, we're going to explore the Defence Forces social architecture. We're going to identify where the Defence Forces architecture sits along each continuum, okay, which is similar to the last section in terms of you're going to write where it fits on a scale, to the right or to the left, based on where you feel, and if you can give it a score as well out of 10, 10 being very good, excellent, 0 being very poor, and obviously 5 being in the middle. After you've marked it on the scale, if you can please just indicate as to why. So the first one is networks, and this is organisation and how it's characterised by clusters of people.
Okay. Networks, I'd say I'll give this an 8 out of 10, because there is characterised by many small clusters of people who are well known to each other, and I would agree with that. Like you come out of recruit training and you go into a particular unit, even if you move out of that unit, you will always have a connection with that unit, and then before you know, no matter where you go in the organisation, you'll always cross paths over. So we'll give that an 8.
Okay, very good, thank you. And moving on to the next one, the quality of relationships in the organisation, whether it's high or low.
Okay, I would say it is quality of relationship in the organisation is, I'd say it's a 6.
Okay.
6. So it's middle. And the reason why I'd say that is I think the soldier that's coming into the Defence Forces nowadays compared to years ago they had camaraderie and kind of good friendships, whatever. I think soldiers coming in nowadays are more educated, okay, and they kind of come in with so you joined the army years ago and you were Jack the Lad for a few years and you had the crack, whatever. But I think the fact, because they're more educated coming in, they're getting mortgages, or they're more settled in relation to what they want to do with their money. So saying the quality of relationships, I'm not saying everybody's kind of sticks to himself, but they kind of they know what they want in life, and they know they need to save hard to get it. So whether it be, looking at your wages and possibly a trip overseas as soon as possible, and getting on the property ladder. So I think people are more educated coming in and they know what they want. So therefore, I'll give it a 6. The camaraderie is not there like it was in the.
So the camaraderie is not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think they're more serious?
Not that they're more serious. When you came in, you kind of lived in, and you had, your accommodation, your rations taken out of your wages, and then your money was yours. The amount of guys coming in who have a partner or a young child, and they want to get on the property ladder. So I would say more serious, but more educated, and they know what they want. They need save money, not being out, blowing it on booze or whatever the case may be. I think to come in with a mindset, I'll do my 5 years, I'll get a trip overseas, I might go back to college at night, and my money will be. So they're not in the bully boy gangs or the cliques that they would have been back in the 60s, 70s and 80s and even 90s. I think mid-90s.
So you would put it down to the over-intensification of work that it's prevalent in today's modern environment in society, and also the other commitments, the increased commitments that people have personally.
Yeah, people are educated, or people want to get educated, so that's their priority, and they know what they want. So if they're joining the army, they're working out, right, I'm going to do a trip overseas, or I'm going to go into Polish prison, and they have it mapped out what they're going to do with their money in order to get an apartment, a house, or whatever the case may be.
Okay, we'll move on to the culture. So this looks at whether the organisation values when the organisation emphasise the importance of people as well as profit or efficiency. Bearing in mind the Defence Forces isn't a profit institution, but in terms of values, does the organisation emphasise the importance of people above the product it produces?
Well, for an example, here this week, with the hazardous conditions of Storm Emma, does it value the organisation? Yeah, I think, but we're slightly different than the general population in that we take orders. So, yes.
Sorry, that's my fault. What I mean, does the organisation value its people more than it does the performance of those people? As in, does it value people more than it values what those people have to produce?
Right. Okay. Does it value? Right, it's a bit of a tricky one. So let's just say that again. So does the organisation value the person more so than what the person provides for the organisation?
Then efficiency.
More about just getting the job done rather than providing kind of a good culture kind of for people to work in.
Yeah, like rewards within the Defence Forces, or I think that's open to the individual. And what I mean by the individual is if I work hard in the organisation, do all my IT's ranges overseas and do my courses, I will be rewarded. But if the individual doesn't want to do any of that, well then I don't think the organisation would look favourably on that individual.
Okay,
So
it doesn't have to be one or the other. So it can value people as well as it does value performance. But to what degree does the Defence Forces value you as a member of the Defence Forces as in contrast to what you produce? Is the organisation more concerned with what you produce, or are they concerned about you as an employee, or both? So if they're both even, to value you and what you produce, then you're talking about a situation that's higher on compassion. If they value what you produce, and as Jane said, that you get the job done, over you as an employee and what they can do to support you as an employee in your job, then it's lower. So where would you say the organisation fits in? And please, we are speaking to you as the representative for the Defence Forces, but you're giving your personal views on this based on the position you hold.
Yeah.
So please speak candidly.
Yeah, well, it's a tricky one because looking at my own experience and people that I know, anyone that done well in the Defence Forces and was rewarded rightly for it was because they set out a career path. And then I look at other guys or girls in the Defence Forces and they're just happy enough to come and go and whatever. So I'd say the Army or the Defence Forces does value the person over the organisation.
And why?
Because, like I said, if you have all your ducks in a row every year, your ITs, your fitness tests, your medical and your availability for overseas, and then career courses comes up. So if you meet the minimum requirements to progress within the Defence Forces, the Defence Forces will honour that.
Okay, so are you talking about the fact Defence Forces gives career opportunities, training courses, provides a PSS service?
Yeah. So it kind of, it looks after from all aspects of it. If an individual is disappointed with the service, I think sometimes there's a sense of entitlement as well in the organisation. So someone presents to me and they said they're not being signed on or something like that. It's because they haven't met the criteria. So I think it does for the individual that take it on board.
So where would you score the organisation?
You see, it's a tricky one. To the guy that embraces it, I'd give it a 7.
No, we're just talking about the organisation. It doesn't matter whether Pádraig here or me or you embrace it. That's not really what matters. It's does the organisation provide, do the value, and how do you do it? So
I'll give it a 7.
Okay, a 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. The organisation in terms of humanity, does it value the humanity of its people and its clients to a great degree, or does it value the humanity of its people not much?
Okay, great degree.
Okay.
I give that.
And why?
I give that a 9. Well, an example of why, from a multinational point of view, so deployments overseas. This was brought home to me recently. Like we're with the UN, 50, 60 years now at this stage, and it's when you work with other nationalities or other nations, you realise how much the organisation values you when you're deployed overseas. But obviously you have to get the training back home to do that. So therefore it values you
and your humanity.
Yeah.
And this is about the humanity of Soldier X when he's overseas.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can't just pick him up and put him out there. You have to. You have to train them up to be at a certain standard, and you only see your standard when you're standing beside other nationalities overseas.
Okay, we need to speed this up a small little bit, as much as we can. So roles, and if you just quickly read the two and just indicate where you feel it fits.
Yeah, that's roles. The first roles there, I would give it a 9. So any
Okay.
career courses or unit commanders would definitely, people do feel a great deal of responsibility taking care of others as part of the work.
Okay,
So we would
very
get a
good.
lot of phone calls.
Okay.
Okay, the next roles perceive a great deal of creativity in ways people create the roles in the organisation. Yeah, I give that an 8. The second one. And the reason why I give that is that some people sometimes I would get a phone call and someone might give me the answers over the phone. So I've Joe blogs or Mary blogs in relation to this. I think they should go down and see you and do X, Y, Z. So I think a lot of people are willing to help and are very creative in what the individual needs, but unfortunately it's through our service.
Okay, so people go out of their way.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. They don't just stick to the job description
No.
and say, no, sorry, no can do. Okay,
No.
very good.
And sometimes rank doesn't come into it at all,
Okay.
so it comes right back to
Yeah.
compassion.
Routines.
Right,
First one.
routines. Okay. Okay, routines. Okay, I'll give that an 8.
Okay.
And the reason why decisions made or decisions adhere in ways that reflect great care for people. So sometimes a person might present down to us and it mightn't have been their decision, okay? It might have been somebody that knows Mary or Joe's off form, could have been a CS, company sergeant major, whatever. So people are human at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and they notice that I'm not firing on all cylinders, maybe you should go down to PSS.
PSS, okay. Second routines question.
Okay. Okay, I give this 8 as well.
Okay, very good.
The way that we hire, onboard, train, develop and reward for performance incorporates significant focus and care for people. So yeah, we spoke about that earlier on, I think. So sometimes we'll bring in the likes of outside organisations and it might be something that was brought up several times. So we'll source the individual or the organisation, bring them in. The likes of family law was brought in recently, men's health was brought in recently. Whatever is wanted at ground level is usually filtered back up to us and we look at it. I brought in the National Consumer Agency, I brought in the social welfare out in Newbridge. So finances was a huge one last year. I think there was about 800 soldiers attended 3 conference in a day and a half, just coming in and getting
Okay.
it. So,
Very good. Next one is leadership.
okay, leadership. Yeah, that happens probably mostly in my job. So first point of contacts are senior NCOs or officers within the unit. They'll ring me and say, look, I'm going to send somebody down, or I think you should make contact with somebody. So yes, I give that a 9 because
Okay.
that happens every day of the week. Happened today, 1:30.
Okay, very good. The second one is leadership again.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'll give that an 8. Leaders in the organisation, model care and concern as a primary part of work. So they would look at our needs. So the director would look at what's presented and we send up our returns and our pie charts or whatever. And then he might say, right, we're going to go down a route. So, you know, it could be anything from, like I'm trying to think the last, so the app that I mentioned earlier on, he wants something out of service that a soldier can access. So that's his brainchild at the moment, or that's his what he's going to endeavour to produce.
You can correct me on this, and look again, we'll alter this after if we need to, but just from my own, having been here for the last few days with the ACA response, I can tell you that every decision we made in HQ, the concern of the soldier on the ground was first and foremost and was paramount. We made sure that people get enough rest, that nobody was out driving for any more than 3 or 4 hours, that everybody went out, had a shotgun with them in a jeep even when there was no requirement to do so, and they got beds and they got fed. As much as we could provide, we gave. and it was the first thing. So ACA response, I think, is a good
So if you
example.
meet the
And we can
basic
probably
needs,
use that,
yeah.
Jane. I can kind of
Yeah,
expand on that if we need to.
input, yeah.
So stories. I often hear stories of compassion in an organisation, or I rarely hear stories of compassion in this organisation.
See, this is it. I'd have to give that. Probably a 5,
Okay.
4 or 5, and I spoke to you about that. So I'll give it a 5.
Okay,
But the
you
reason-
rarely hear stories. Okay.
Yeah, because of the stigma of, so someone's not going to rock up to tea break and say, I was down with PSS there, I was in Pickle in relation to XYZ, spoke to Sergeant Card, it's all sorted now. And even for me in the service, when I was there for the first 2 years, the hardest part for me was feedback. Did I fix job logs? Did I fix, there was no feedback, so therefore I didn't know whether I was providing the right service. But I think it took me a while in speaking to other people. Believe me, if you didn't fix it, you'll hear
Okay.
from it. So, but I think people are proud. So therefore, what you provide and what you do, never, now and then, someone might say to you on duty, I heard you, it could be a year later, I heard you sort of thing.
Okay, so it is rare.
It is rare.
Okay, given that you've said that, would you revise your score from 5? 5 is in the middle. It's either rare.
We'll give it a 4 then. Give it a
Okay.
4, I think, because I think
Okay.
people, and when people get what they want, there's
Yeah.
a tendency not to look back, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
and don't be afraid, Gary. If you want to put down a 0 or 1, go for it.
No,
Like,
no.
I mean,
I think 4 is it.
you know,
Like I do hear it from time to time, but majority of the time, no.
yeah. And the final one.
Okay. Can you remember and tell yeah, can I easily remember and tell it? Yeah, I suppose I can. And with that is, I suppose, overseas. So if somebody was overseas and a family member passed away, obviously there'd be a flight booked as soon as possible. Now sometimes the individual might be just back from their UN or annual leave, and there'd be a whip around where lads would all throw in a few bob and pay for his flight to send him home for his.
Okay.
So that'd be.
It's the next example. Where would you score it?
I would give that a 9 because I've seen that done more and more times
Okay.
where soldiers kind of all come together.
Okay, perfect. Thank God we're through that scale. That was a beast. Okay, so you want to identify facilitators and blocks. So this is like strengths and challenges for the last scale. So the 2 facilitators are the 2 furthest to the right, and the 2 blocks are the 2 furthest to the left. So quickly identify which of the elements, and we have 5, okay, and the 5 elements are the networks that we started off with: culture, roles, routines, leaderships, and stories. Okay, so if we can identify whether they're essentially a facilitator or a block, so the 2 strongest and the 2 weakest.
Okay, so
Or
just
two facilitators, right?
2 main facilitators, please determine the 2 lines which. Okay, so here I just need to clarify this again. So you're looking for 2 facilitators out of all of these
Yeah,
headings.
so basically 2 facilitators would be the 2 furthest to the right. Okay,
Okay.
so in terms of a scale, just to give you assistance on
Culture.
this, 10 would be very strong and 0 would be weak. So networks. So we're looking at each element individually. So is it the first networks or the second or the third or fourth? So where you felt the Defence Forces particularly was strong and facilitated through social architecture, compassion in the workplace.
Okay. Yeah, so I said I gave an 8 for the first network. And you want me to explain why?
No,
why-
just of all of the ones there, so we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 12 actual different.
right. and
individual
you want me to
elements.
pick 2 facilitators out of.
Yes,
Well,
so
okay.
the 2 strongest
Yeah.
to the right are the facilitators, and then the 2 furthest to the left would be
Okay.
the blocks. And 2 that you feel are the strongest, and 2 you feel are the blocks.
Okay, so the two facilitators that I
Yeah.
chose, one was the culture. Okay, I'll
Okay.
give it a 9. And that's the second.
First one, is it, or the
Sorry,
second?
second.
So
Second
the
one.
organisation values the humanity of its people and its clients to a great degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other one then was the first leadership. I recall several instances when a leader called for compassion in this organisation. So I give that a 9. So that's the first leadership.
Okay.
So they're the two facilitators. Culture 9 and leadership 9.
Okay. We kind of weave by getting the why. Gary's already given us reasons why, so we can use that to.
Yeah.
We don't need to start going through that again. So the 2 blocks then, Gary.
The blocks then I went with the first culture because I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
And the values of the organisation emphasises profit and efficiency more than anything else. So that was 1.
And then you have a 4 there as well. A earlier
Yeah,
stories.
4. Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
go with the stories. So
Okay,
that's
block
one
2.
block as well. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay, this is the last of the arduous ones. So we want to look at basically in this part how the Defence Forces can create a blueprint for social architecture. So we're going to look at each of those 5 elements in terms of networks, roles, culture, routines, and leaders' actions and stories. We're going to look at each one individually. We're going to identify whether you believe it's a facilitator or whether it's blocking the social architecture in terms of the ability to provide compassion in the Defence Forces.
Okay.
And then we're just going to essentially look at a short example of why it's a facilitator or a block. Now you've kind of given us those already. You've given us a lot of information in the answers to so we probably maybe nearly have enough, do we? We'll just get Gary to identify.
Yeah, if you can ask me questions.
We'll just get you to identify whether each one is a
Yeah,
facilitator or a
maybe
block, and
one.
then
And
we
if you want to
yeah.
elaborate, whatever. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so element 1, network. So you're going to have to refer back to the scale here. So overall, is this element a facilitating or blocking element in terms of social architecture?
Facilitating.
Facilitating, okay.
Culture.
Okay, and element 2, is this element facilitating or blocking?
And element 2 is what is
Culture.
culture.
So you're looking
Yeah.
at,
Facilitating.
facilitating, okay. Element 3 is roles. Is this facilitating or blocking?
Facilitating.
Facilitating. Element 4, routines.
Facilitating also.
Facilitating also. Okay, and element 5 is leaders' actions and stories. So this refers to the last 4 elements on the scale.
Right, so you're including the last 2 because I was actually going to leave. So leadership obviously facilitates 100%.
Yeah.
The stories I gave it a 4. So I'd say that has a tendency to block as well.
So overall, leadership actions and stories.
I'd have to say facilitate the fact that leadership is part of it.
Yeah, it's really
Because if leadership
okay.
leadership couldn't be a blocking
Okay.
in Defence Forces because it's the bones of our organisation. Sure.
That's fine. That's the 5 elements covered. We've got examples from Gary of each one going down along. I think we can use those as the basis.
But you can ring me anyway. If there's
Yeah.
something that you want to
Okay,
clarify, you can
yeah,
ring me
we
and
can-
I'd say, all right,
yeah.
and that's
Are you happy, Jane, with that, or do you want us to go back and give a specific example for each of the 5?
No, I'm
Happy enough. I think
okay.
we've got a lot.
Yeah.
Considering you've told me that
I feel like
most
I'm
other
in a job
took 10
interview.
minutes. I think we're going to have a lot of raw data, which is good.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot to pick from.
But again, don't hesitate. If there's something
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense, Jane, or whatever,
Yeah.
or it doesn't, you can't put your finger on it, just ring me and I can give you another example.
Yeah.
Or which, or sorry,
You know me, Gary.
you
I'm
can
not
add
gonna
me to the
hesitate.
bones. You can add me to the bones. Yeah, you won't be stuck.
I wouldn't say it like that, but I would politely ask
Yeah.
you. And I know you guys know the guys in there are the best in the world, so I know you'd be
Yeah.
the first to come in
And I
and
wouldn't
help
mind. I
us.
had the social worker on standby for Friday.
Okay,
Grania.
really? Okay.
But she's wasn't available today.
Wasn't
but she's
available. She couldn't get into work.
No, she's actually on house calls and house visits and
Okay.
all. So that's another thing we do. Like
Right.
so we will. So is that? Have you one
No,
more?
just one more section now. This is a bit more straightforward. And in this section, we want to identify what is the most significant obstacle to compassion in the Defence Forces. But before we identify that obstacle, we're just going to ask you some questions as a lead in, just to help shape your, or not help shape our restaurant, to help just get you thinking about this. So in your view, what would you consider to be the definition of compassion? And sorry, yes, just go for that one first.
Okay. So within the organisation or my own personal view of?
No, in your view, what would you consider the definition of compassion?
All right. Okay.
Within a Defence Forces framework, so within the context of Defence Forces.
So obviously compassion comes in tandem. Like, some people just can't show compassion. So in the organisation there's all this macho bravado, whatever, but the majority of people would show a lot of empathy for somebody. And then a huge thing is unconditional positive regard. That's the buzzword in it. So unconditional positive regard.
So if I was to confine you down to one sentence on it, how would you sum it up? Compassion in the Defence Forces. What is it?
Right. Okay. Compassion in the Defence Forces is information and referral to the individual's needs, and to leave possibly the organisation and rank to the side.
Okay.
So does that explain to you? So if somebody presents into me, you look at them as a human, not necessarily as an officer, senior NCO or private.
Okay.
They're coming into you, and that's why I'm in civilians here today.
So
I don't wear uniform. So even the uniform, Jane, is a barrier. So if I have my rank markings on and someone comes in, they're kind of going, right, I'm still in the military mode. So the only time I wear a uniform is when I'm lecturing.
So see through the uniform, see past the uniform, see past it to the person.
Yeah.
Very
and
good.
you mentioned empathy as well. I think that's being empathetic is a big part of it.
Oh, huge, and that's when people present with the presenting question. So if a guy knocks on my door, comes in, he's presenting with the presenting question. They'll never hit you with the real reason why they're there, and then when they're leaving, they'll hit you with, as I call it, the close the door question. So they'll come in, suss out the service, could be query about their wages, whatever, and then when they're leaving, then they'll hit you with the haymaker. But unconditional positive regard is not judging anybody. So if a soldier come into me and his house has been repossessed because he gambled for the last 5 years, you can't say, geez, you shouldn't have done that. You have to part that as well and see where he's at now, and how we can help him out.
Just to clarify, unconditional positive regard as a behaviour, okay. What do you perceive as the benefits to acting with compassion in terms of the Defence Forces? So for the Defence Forces, in reference to the Defence Forces, what do you perceive as the benefits to acting with compassion to the organisation as a whole?
So, simple. So as we're sitting here now, there is 10% of the DFTC unoperational due to whatever reason. Financial, domestic, social, addiction, whatever the case may be. So there's, on a daily basis with overseas and courses, there's nearly 2,000 soldiers going through the camp today. So 10% of them will present to us at some stage. And you're kind of going, wow, them numbers are quite high. But I then look at the turnover, and I've yet to see somebody that's still struggling 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months later. So the benefits is unit commanders ring us with the 10% that's ineffective, send them, signpost them to us, and then we kind of help them and get them back. And then there's nothing as nice as going to get the post or driving up to a brief or a conference and you see a lad that was down with you 6 months ago and he's back on the horse and off he goes.
Okay, well, as the operations officer in the DFTC, I am absolutely delighted to hear that. Just as a side, not really funny, but
10%,
no, that's genuinely very, very interesting. I think to hear that you can increase your operation. Operations to us is what it's about. So if someone's not operational, they're essentially no use to us. And whatever role is.
The stats we have is 10%.
Operational increase
on a daily basis.
Yeah, my own job aside, that's very interesting. Okay, excellent. So what skills do you think are necessary in overcoming obstacles to compassion in the Defence Forces?
Okay. What skills do you think
so
are necessary?
What skills do you think are necessary to overcome? So in terms of just in the organisation as a whole, what skills are necessary in overcoming obstacles?
Working with sister organisations, 100%.
Okay.
So you need to get out there with the...
You mean external collaboration?
Yeah, with the prison service, with the fire service, with the Garda Síochána, and then with HSC, I've done courses with them. So working with sister organisations and upskilling all the time, because the individual's needs are changing all the time. So if you just do your 2 years doing the EAP course, which I did 8 years ago, I'd be left behind. So constant
Okay.
upskilling and working with sister
So
organisations.
you mean like benchmarking against best practice?
Yeah,
and
and,
then-
seeing
and
what's
then-
and seeing what's coming over the hill. Like what
Okay.
oh yeah, when you speak to them, they go, yeah, we the same. You know,
So-
Educating yourselves is
yes, is key as well.
Okay, so upskilling and avoiding skill fade.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an issue in a lot of disciplines. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the final act and a big part of this. So, in your opinion, what is the most significant upskill to compassion in the Defence Forces?
Okay. From the individual's needs or the organisation?
No, in the organisation as a whole. So looking at the organisation of the Defence Forces,
Right.
what is the biggest significant obstacle in the Defence Forces to compassion?
I think it's, you know, we're a bravo, macho environment, and if I look or seek, for example, assistance in mental health or whatever, the stigma, the shame, and the career I'd be thinking of my career. So if I present with X, Y, Z, how will this affect my career? Will I be medically downgraded? That affects my overseas, that affects promotions and all. So that's the biggest problem.
Okay. Could you express in detail through a specific situation or incident where this obstacle was manifest? So has there ever been any example that you've become aware of where this obstacle that you mentioned of bravado, of stigma, of shame associated with accessing PSS services or compassion service in Defence Forces, can you recall a particular situation where that was manifested that you became aware of?
So basically what you're asking me is, if somebody presented with a particular issue, where did this?
No, no. You don't have to present it to you, but and I'm just conscious I don't have a leading question, but really you're talking about a particular situation, or instance, where you became aware that somebody didn't access services of a compassionate nature, such as PSS,
Right.
because of this obstacle that you've described, which is stigma and the bravado, the macho atmosphere.
And where did that manifest? As in, where did the
Yeah, so
individual?
can you, like, is there an instant where, say, Private X or Triple Y didn't actually access PSS services because of this stigma, because of the fear, where you became aware that someone was suffering, that they needed compassion?
Yeah.
The services are there in terms of PSS, but they wouldn't access it
Okay.
because of the stigma.
Right. So some individuals access the service, other individuals don't, and it's a voluntary. I can't
Yeah.
go and detail a guy.
Can you give me a particular incident or an example where you may have learned from a third or fourth party that someone was suffering here in the DFTC
And I didn't get help.
but weren't accessing
Yeah.
because of this obstacle that you've described of stigma?
even
Yeah.
what you mentioned about like your career progression might
Yeah.
be an issue.
Yeah. So yeah, will I give an exact example?
You can give an exact example. This
Okay,
this
so-
will be. Are you in the DFTC long? Are you going to talk about?
No, I'm not going to
You can
mention any
leave,
names.
you can leave names out.
No,
Okay,
no,
leave
and
names
this
out.
is
Sorry,
way
Paul,
back.
not to.
No, it's just no. Here, yeah, confidentiality is
Yeah.
no. So when I first joined PSS 8 years ago, I learnt of a particular cadet who was
Okay.
in cadetship, and she went through a whole cadetship, kind of suffering, suffering for the want of a better word, but got on with her cadetship, didn't say anything or do anything about it till at the end of her, what back then it was 2
Give
years.
specifics of the suffering because we
Yeah.
just to give the
So
details.
okay, I'm just trying to think now. So throughout the whole lot, so the instructor staff were coming down on her hard
Okay.
on PT, which is physical training, anything that was hard grafting, they kind of swayed towards her and gave her additional attention. But she didn't do anything about it. The service was quite young at the time, and continued on for her cadetship. I think it was 2 years before it's 14 months now. Is it 2 years?
It was 21 months, yeah.
21 months,
yeah.
So 21 months. So at the end of it, and this is how at the end of it then, she wrote a huge letter of complaint. So she didn't deal with it at the time.
Okay.
Waited till she got commissioned as a lieutenant,
Yeah.
and then put pen to paper and sent shockwaves through the milk hall. So to me, out of anyone, that comes to mind because she did 21 months of suffering, but it was her choice not to access the service because mightn't have got commissioned, might have affected her career down the road, whatever else. So she dealt with it herself, which is tough when you're on your own, and then put pen to paper at the end of it.
How would you describe the suffering? What was it? Was it just mental?
Yeah, mental
Anguish.
suffering, anxiety. I wouldn't say, I'd say panic attacks, anxiety.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say depression
Yeah,
or
this is-
suicide.
This is a little bit. This is a bit different because this is.
I can
This
give
is
another example.
no. I tell you why it's a bit different because just this is more like bullying. We do have issues, not like what we used to, but that's more. She was bullied essentially.
Right.
That what you're saying.
So give me, okay, so
We might have to get a just for ourselves for
Yeah.
for nature the project.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Okay.
think it's just more like, would you think or would you know that she didn't kind of seek out help because of the obstacles, as in because of this environment that she's in, and that she might have
I think the
been
environment
looked
back
down on?
in the 90s down there was different, and maybe so.
Like
maybe
I've been a cadet. I know what it's like up there, and the Omerta that's up there. So I'd say there was a lot of people in my